right. What a pleasure, as always, to talk to the greatest of all time, the one and only, the pride of Saint Isidore, Quebec, Canada, the former UFC welterweight and middleweight champion, the man who needs no introduction, even though I just gave him one, Georges St-Pierre. George, how are you?
Thank you. What a nice introduction. My goodness, Ariel.
Why do you laugh? Why do you laugh,
you.
George, when I say greatest of all time? You don't like when I say that, right?
Well, it's a very subjective thing, you know. It's depends for which reason greatest of all time. We can talk about it, you know, and there's many reasons for a person to be the greatest of all time. You know, so you know, if someone who faced the most adversity, someone who has the most dominant career, someone who's, you know what I mean? It depends, you know, and I don't know who would be the greatest of all time. I think there's a few guys that deserve there to be there as well, you know, like a lot of guys.
Sure. You check off all those boxes for me. We are not here to talk about that. We've talked about that in the past. We're here to talk about a lot of exciting things, as always, going on in your life. And so let us begin with the t-shirt that you are wearing. You are wearing a t-shirt that reads Karate Combat. You're the newest member of the upstart Karate Combat promotion / organization. Tell us what you'll be doing for them.
Yes, sir. I will bring my insight and I will work. I'm going to meet these guys when I go to California at the end of the month. And I'm very excited. I'm going back to my roots, Ariel. Whoosh, you know, karate. It's a great organization. It's a very fast-paced form of fighting. You know, it's karate. It's my background. For people who know me, I've been doing this since I started. I was 7 years old, and it's a lot of fun to see now that there's a professional organization for karate fighters, people that comes from karate background, whether they're from point fighting karate or traditional karate like me. So the rules are, it doesn't favor any style of karate. I would say it's a mix of everything. So finally, I'm very happy to see that karate, because karate used to be always in competition with one and another. You know, oh, my style of karate is better than your style of karate. And now what we see now with Karate Comeback is they bring all karate together. So karate gonna be stronger now because it's gonna be a mix, a competition that allows all different styles to fight under their rules. You know, so it's a very exciting time. So it's been there for a few years already, but now we're gonna take it to the next level.
Now, to be clear, you're not going to be actually competing for Karate Combat. You're going to be what they're calling their seasoned sensei. So you'll be helping out the combatants?
Exactly. I'm going to be helping out, giving my insight, and I'm very excited. I'm going to be with Bass Rutten and a few other guys. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Now, of course, considering your background in Kyokushin Karate back in the day, I'm just curious if there's any thoughts in your mind, oh, I'm going to be around these guys, I'm going to be watching them. This would be fun for me to go back to my roots and actually compete in it. Any interest in that? Has that been discussed at all?
Well, to tell you the truth, if Karate Combat would have existed when I was younger, I would have certainly competed in it. I think it's a great avenue for athletes that are coming from karate background, because the rules make it in a way that they allowed also takedowns and everything. So it's really pure. Like in terms of rules, it's the only organization of karate that they allowed every style of karate to compete with each other. You know what I mean? Because if you're coming from karate Kyokushin background, the rules of Karate Comeback allowed you to do things that you do in Kyokushin karate, but also allowed you to do things that you're not really allowed to do. So everybody is out of this comfort zone, but they have to compete under the rules of Karate Combat. So we'll be able to see who's the real best athlete coming from karate background. And I think it's going to make karate stronger. I think because of that, also we'll see more and more athlete coming from karate background competing in all kinds of course, Karate Combat, but all kinds of mixed martial art competition that are coming from that organization as well.
So my understanding is they're filming their third season now, as you said, in LA. It's going to air in May. Network to be determined, and people can follow them on Instagram. Karate Combat is their name. This reminds me a little bit, George, of when you were a part of the 4th season of The Ultimate Fighter, where you kind of came in and you weren't a coach for a specific team. You just kind of helped everyone. Does it feel the same sort of way to you?
Yeah, I'll try to help everyone as much as I can. And of course, I'm not there to make enemies. I'm only here to make friends. The difference is when I was in the Ultimate Fighting season, I was competing against an opponent. Now I'm really going there to try to give my insights, try to teach the guys the best as I can. And I'm very excited about it. And I'm going back to my roots. And for me, it's a big thing.
You still practice karate?
100%. Karate always been part of my training. When I practice, a kick is a kick, a punch is a punch. Whether you do karate, we call in Kyokushin, we call that, for example, a round kick, we call that mawashigiri. In Muay Thai, they're gonna call it tesai. There's in Savate they have another name, coupier retourné. They have a kick is a kick, no matter which martial art you come from. There's just different names. You know what I mean? And every style of martial art have different specialities. And that's what is beautiful. Martial art is a universal language that whatever is your background, wherever is your religion, wherever you come from, wherever is your culture, we can communicate with each other and interact with one another.
Is there someone right now in mixed martial arts that you feel is using karate effectively? That, we know about Lyoto Machida, we know about you, even Henry Cejudo later in his career, he started to use a karate stance.
Absolutely. The best guy I've seen in karate, the best striker I've seen, like if you would make a competition in an octagon, pure striking, the best one I've ever seen, it's Raymond Daniels. For me, he's the best striker I've seen. The control of distance, his timing is just unbelievable. However, keep in mind that when you change the rules, you change the game. So he's the best at fighting under karate rules, but in mixed martial art, it's different sometimes. So that's why we see sometimes world-class striker getting knocked out by wrestlers and world-class grapplers getting submitted by strikers. The mixed martial art is different. You know what I mean? The distance are different. But in terms of karate, pure karate, I would say Raymond Daniel would be probably in the world of karate would be recognized as the best, like the GOAT in karate, in pure karate. But does it translate as good into mixed martial art? That's another question. There's, like, for example, in boxing, you would take, for example, Floyd Mayweather, who's probably considered as many, like, the best of all time. Maybe a striking will not be well adapted for mixed martial art, so you can't really, because you're changing the rule. You change a rule, you change the games. You know what I mean? So there's perhaps some guys that are not as good as a boxer as Floyd Mayweather who would do better in mixed martial art because their striking games are more adapted for a mixed martial art competition. Freddie Roach always told me that what he's teaching me in terms of boxing, he doesn't teach me the same way he will teach a guy like Manny Pacquiao, because the rules in mixed martial art are different. So the inside boxing in mixed martial art, we don't see that much because there's a lot of clinching, elbows and knees, wrestling. But we see a lot of the outside boxing, like I would say it's more like amateur style, from the outside. So that's the one thing also in karate. There's a lot of stuff in karate, a lot of moves and technique in karate that are specific to karate that might not be well suited for mixed martial art and vice versa. In jiu-jitsu is same thing, wrestling, same thing, boxing, same thing. So change the rules, change the game.
So that actually leads me to my next question. I'm assuming that you saw the Conor McGregor Dustin Poirier fight in January, right?
Yeah, of course. I was doing the French commentator on it.
On LDS, Réseau de Sport, right? In Quebec. And a lot of talk after that fight was about Conor switching his stance and having a more traditional boxing stance as opposed to his old karate style stance where he had a lot of movement and he was, very light on his feet. Did you notice that? And did you think that led to him losing the fight?
It could have been a big factor why he lost that fight. I know he talks about how he got hurt with that calf kick. And when you're in a boxing stance, very often your weight, your leg or your stance is wider, and a lot of your weight is put on the lead leg, which make you very vulnerable for those leg kicks, you know. And that could have been a big factor. And don't forget also that a lot of the athletes are impacted by COVID, you know, like for example, like me in Canada, even if I would want to train for a fight, it's illegal. We cannot even train. I would have to move away. So I don't know how COVID has impacted Conor McGregor's camp. I don't know how it is in Ireland, you know. Did he have to modify the way he was training because of the COVID rules? Did he do more boxing? And that's perhaps what made him not perform as good. But we talk about Conor, but let's talk about also Dustin Poirier. Poirier did an amazing, let's not take away the performance of Dustin Poirier. It was amazing. He deserved the win, you know?
I agree.
Like sometimes we have the tendency when someone is so dominant to only talk about how he didn't look the same. And we see that very often, like also with Israel Adesanya and Blachowicz. Blachowicz in that fight, same thing. He surprised me. He showed how good he was, you know, like I was not expecting to see, I didn't know how good he was. You know what I mean? Same thing with Dustin Poirier. I didn't know how good he was, you know?
Yeah, no, and you know, I didn't mean to ask you about Conor so soon, but something that has been said about him that I wanted to ask about you and to you was, you know, Marvin Hagler, who unfortunately just passed away this weekend, had a famous quote where he said, "It's very hard to wake up in the morning when you're sleeping in satin sheets," meaning, you know, when you're rich and famous, it's hard to go run at 5 a.m. And, you know, this has been said of Conor, oh, he's so rich now, he's so famous. Does he have that motivation like he did 6-7 years ago when he had no monies to his name? Did you ever struggle with that when you started to become, you know, I'm looking behind you, there's the, you know, the Rogers Center in Toronto, 55,000 people. When you were at your height, did you ever feel like you were lacking motivation because now the bank account was bigger and you were a lot more famous?
So when I made my first million, of course, my life has changed. You know, I had more security, and I didn't feel that I was fighting for the same reason that I was in the beginning in terms of security. When I was poor in the beginning, I was on the edge. You know, I knew if I lost, I would have been deaf, and my life would be a mess. When you get money, these things change. However, to keep performing, you need to get out of your comfort zone. You cannot stay in your comfort zone during a training camp because you're trying to recreate the same element that you will face for a fight. And when you're gonna fight, you won't be in your comfort zone. So it is imperative that Conor, if you wanna get back on the road of success, he need to get out of his comfort zone. He need not to be the boss of his training camp. He need his coaches to tell him, like, now you're gonna spar this guy, you're gonna go there, do this. Even if it doesn't please him, he need to go through that. Because if you stay in your comfort zone, the only thing that can happen is you will go down. You need to do that.
Israel Adesanya, as you just mentioned, tried to do what you did, going up a weight class and win the belt. He didn't add as much weight as people thought he should have. And you talked about adding too much weight and getting sick. Do you think that was a mistake? Do you think that led to him losing the fight, or was it just a matter of Jan being a better fighter that night?
It's just, I think Israel Adesanya will have other chances to perhaps go back to win a title at light heavyweight. It's just that sometimes it's not always the best fighter that wins the fights. You know, it's the fighter that fight the best the night of the fight that wins the fight. When I watched that fight, I felt that the first 2 rounds were perhaps going, I was leaning more towards Adesanya. The 3rd round, I didn't know. And of course, the last 2 rounds was for Blachowicz. So it was still a very close fight. You know, you make that fight 10 times. I don't think Blachowicz will win all 10 fights, you know? So I don't know, like I don't think it was a mistake. I think it was a learning experience for Israel Adesanya. I think this fight will make him a much better fighter. And I was very surprised I didn't know how good was Blachowicz, because not only I thought to win, Blachowicz needed to make it more like a dirty fight. And in the beginning, he was able to stand with Adesanya. And I always thought that Adesanya would be too fast for him. But Blachowicz did very, very well in that department. And then later on in the fight, I believe because he's a bigger man, Adesanya couldn't, when you fight a bigger man, you cannot stay in front of him and exchange. You cannot make those mistakes. So the way you fight a bigger man, it's never as economical as when you fight a guy of your own size. And it shows later down the road during that fight that Blachowicz was taking over Adesanya, you know.
Now, George, I have a big problem, and I'm wondering if you can help me with this. You know, Kamaru Usman is a great champion, and he has 4 victories in welterweight title fights. But I'm starting to hear people say greatest welterweight champion of all time, better than Georges St-Pierre, who has 11 victories in title fights. What's going on here, George? How could you even say this? I mean, 4 to 11, let alone, you know, the guys that you fought and beat. This is crazy talk. And I'm not trying to disrespect him at all, but there's a big difference being the man for 11 title fights as opposed to 4, right? This is not a conversation yet, maybe in a few years, but yet it's not a conversation, right?
Listen, in terms of accomplishment, it's different. I've done stuff that I believe he didn't do yet. But I'm going to tell you the truth. And as painful as it could be for any athlete to admit it, the athletes of today's are normally better than the athlete of yesterday. And as good as the athlete of today's are, the athlete of tomorrow's will be better. That's how it is. I don't care who you are. Even if you're Usain Bolt, you beat the world record. In a few years, there's another guy that will come and beat your record. I don't think it's because the guys are better. It's because the technology is better. And it's the same thing in mixed martial art. We cannot measure the performance like in sprinting or weightlifting, but we can only speculate. And you know, of course, time for time, maybe he didn't win 11 title, but you know, he's raising the bar. And if I don't admit that, that's mean I insult the entire UFC roster. That's mean I'm saying that the sport is regressing, and it's not true. I believe the sport is getting better. Do I feel that if I wanted to, or if I would go back in my prime, if I could fight Kamaru Usman, I do think, yes, I could have done it. However, I know for a fact that as time goes by, guys get better. Even my GOAT, my personal GOAT is Royce Gracie, because he has done things that never been done before. But I know for a fact that if I would put Royce Gracie nowadays against a guy of his own size, it might not go well for him. However, for his time, if he has done stuff that I feel it would never be repeated again, because he's that good for his time. But guys get better with time. And that's how it is. I don't care who you are. If you are Royce Gracie, John Jones, Demetrius Johnson, guys will get better. Guys get better. We cannot stop the progress. And as painful as it is to admit, that's the truth, you know?
That is fair, but not yet, right? I mean, we can't put the cart before the horse. There's still some work to be done. There are records to be broken. That's my point.
Yeah, but Ariel, the way they promote the sport, let's not forget, mixed martial art, it's a sport about what's next. It's not about what happened before. It's about what's next. And it's always been like that, you know? The champion that will come after Kamaru Usman, we will promote him as the best guy ever, who's better than Georges St-Pierre, better than Kamaru Usman, but it's the same thing. Now we have Kamaru Usman, we have Israel Adesanya. We don't talk about Anderson Silva anymore, you know? We talk about Israel Adesanya, and that's okay. That's how the sport is, and we have to accept it. You know what I mean? And I know how it is, and we like to be remembered for the stuff that we've done, because we put a lot of effort into it, but that's the reality, you know? And I accept it. You know, I made peace with it. It was hard in the beginning, but I made peace with it. It's all good. And I'm a big fan of Kamaru Usman and all these guys that are the newcomers. I mean, I say newcomer, but the current champion. And I think most of the time, the guys of today are better than the guys of yesterday, and the guys of the future will be even better than the guy that we have now.
Speaking of the welterweight division, George, I wanted to ask you about something that you know a lot about and you've experienced it, eye pokes. I don't know if you saw this past weekend, Leon Edwards and Bilal Muhammad, the eye poke. Could there be anything that can be done to rectify this, or is this just a byproduct of the sport? The fingers have to be exposed. These are the way the gloves are. You need the fingers for grappling. Do you think anything can be done to stop eye pokes at this point?
Yes, and UFC will not like what I say now, but it's the truth. The glove, the way they're made, they make the hand open. Look, the gloves of Bellator, the glove, like I'm a UFC guy, 100%. I make my living there. But if I'm always be real, you know, I'm telling you the truth. The gloves in UFC, they make your hand open. When you put it, when they're brand new, they make your hand open. The glove in Bellator make your hand close. That's why you don't see as much eye poke, I think, in Bellator than in UFC, because it makes your gloves making your hand close, and that's need to be changed. We need to change that. It's normal. We adjust as the sport goes on. You know, same thing with performance enhancing drug. They adjust. Now they need to adjust with the equipment. I think that's one of the things they can improve is these freaking gloves. I'm sorry, it's very frustrating because I love to watch a good fight like it wasn't this weekend, Muhammad and then Edwards, and unfortunately this thing just messed up the fight.
Yeah,
it needs to be done. Yeah,
your old coach Trevor Whitman developed a glove that I don't know if you've ever seen it before, but it's more rounded and it kind of covers this part, but not the fingers totally. I don't know, but I agree with you. Even the Pride gloves back in the day were more rounded. I don't know if you remember those blue gloves.
Yes, because I remember when we are in the locker room before a UFC fight, we're folding the gloves, you know, to make it more soft. But when you first have the gloves, you know, John McCarty, he always fold the glove to make it round, but naturally the glove goes out, like make your hand goes out. The glove need to be made in a way that it naturally make your hand fold. And if you want to open your hand, you need to force your hand, you know, but naturally it folds like this. And I think it will take care of a lot of the problems. Maybe not 100%, but it will certainly make it better, 100%.
You have a few more minutes for us, George?
Yeah, absolutely.
Today, I don't know if you know this, 8 years ago today, you fought Nick Diaz at the Bell Center in Montreal. Did you know that? Like, does the date mean something to you? March 16? No?
I didn't know, but this fight will always, all these fights that I've done I say the fight I've done in Montreal, but all the fight, it's in my memory and I will remember for the rest of my life.
So when I ask you about that fight, like what comes to mind? What are the immediate memories that come to mind?
Well, it felt to me that it's not really the fight. It felt like I never made peace with Nick Diaz, and it's a little bit unfortunate in a way that I feel like he took that not only like a business, he took it like very personal. Yeah, for him, a fight was very personal, but for me, it was very business. You know what I mean? And I never had a chance to see Nick Diaz after we fought but if I ever cross path with him, I'll go see him and shake his hand and say, hey, man, no, I don't hold any grudge. You know, I hope you don't as well. Maybe he's going to want to fight me. I don't know what he feels, but to tell you the truth, I just like to have some sort of camaraderie with my former opponent because we share a moment. We make money, we share a moment, we have a bond together. And for me, he's one of the guys that I never had the chance to talk with after the fight, and I feel it's missing a little bit in my life, you know.
The press conference before the Wolf Tickets press conference, you remember when he missed?
Yeah, it was a lot of things says, a lot of insult and stuff like that, but I just hope he's okay. I wish him the best of life and nothing but just positivity for him, you know. I don't know what happened to him. I just feel it's unfortunate that he was not able to compete while he's in his prime, because I think he left a lot of good years that he could have compete. You know what I mean? Unfortunately, but I just hope he's okay and everything is good. I'm curious to see what he's up to nowadays.
When he accused you of PEDs and cheating on the scale and all this stuff, like, did you ever feel like it got too personal or that he crossed the line?
No, that's the thing. It never felt personal to me, but I know it felt personal to him. That's how he is, you know. Like, I do not need to be personal to fight a guy. For me, it's just business. You know, I will never fight a friend for sure, but I don't need to hate my opponent in order to fight him. I do not need that. I don't carry negative energy. I feel sometimes he need to have some kinds of animosity, some hate in terms for fighting. Some guys drive themselves differently than others. We're all wired differently.
You know, when you look at the sport and you see guys like Junior Dos Santos, Alistair Overeem, even guys like Nick and Carlos Condit, who's getting up there, Jake Shields, like a lot of the guys that you were fighting with at the same time or next to at the same time, and they don't get to leave on their own terms like you did. You're one of the very few in the history of fighting that got to leave on your own terms. Do you get sad when you see that you know, they're just released, or you see them getting knocked out multiple times and it gets Anderson Silva as well, right? It becomes a little uncomfortable. How do you feel when you see that?
Well, it depends. We all have different reasons why we're fighting. I fought, you know, because of the passion. I never liked to fight, to tell you the truth. You know, I never enjoyed it a second. Like, people think I'm lying, but this is the truth. I never loved to fight. I never like it. The people ask me why you're fighting them. I guess it's because I like to win better than I hate to lose. I like the money that I was making. I like the freedom. In order to have that freedom, that money, that access of things that people doesn't have, I needed to fight. That's how I make a living. But the day that I was fighting it, for me, it was unbearable. I never liked it. But I guess some people do like to fight, and they do that because they love it. But I'm not one of them. I did it because it was my living. I love to train. I love the science of fighting. I love martial art, but I don't like to compete because the feeling of not knowing if you're going to be humiliated or badly hurt or winning, it's unbearable for me, you know. But some people, I guess, they like that feeling, you know, and if they want to keep fighting and putting it all on the line, that's their choice. But if I may say something to the people who feel like me, who does not like to fight, and they do that for business, for their life, man, what I'm saying to them, the advice I would say is do it big, you know, try to go as far as you can, but you know, you have your window. You know, when you're past that window, take your money, take your chip, and get the hell out of here. Because if you stay there too long, you'll end up you know, having very bad damages to your body. You know what I mean? And when you not only for a fight, when you train for a fight and when you train for pleasure, it's different. Training for a fight, it's very damageable too. All those crazy sparring before a fight, because you're trying to recreate this environment. It's a lot of stress, a lot of impact, a lot of, you know, it takes a lot out of you. And for me, now I don't need to compete anymore, and I feel good in my own skin with it. You know, I've did it. You know, I've beat the game. You know, I was champion, and I get out on my own term, and I beat the game. You know, I'm done. You know, don't let the game beat you. Beat the game. That's why I can say to the young guys that has the same mentality as me. But if you want to hang out in there and fight because you love it or because you need more money, it's your choice, you know. But you know, that's not how I think.
George, this sounds like an official retirement announcement from you. Did you just officially retire for the first time?
No, I retired a long time ago. The only thing
you never
is
say the word "I'm retired." You've never said that.
Now, Ariel, the only fight that could have made me get up of retirement was Khabib at that time, but it was like it's more than 2 years ago. We tried to make it. UFC, Khabib wanted that fight. I wanted that fight, but UFC did not want that fight. And then that's it. Then after, you have all these guys that are calling me out, Kamaru, all these guys, and it's okay, and I understand why, because they want to have the legacy I have. But it's not by beating me necessarily that they're gonna get that legacy. Don't forget that I defend my belt many times. I had to fight certain guys more than 2 times. I fought Matthews 3 times, Koscheck 2 times, BJ Penn 2 times. I fought guy many times, and it's a long process. It's a long grind, but you need to go through that if you want to be accepted as the legit champion, the greatest guy that you want, that you want to have, that you want to be. You need to go through that. It doesn't happen overnight. For example, it's not because Uriah Hall beat Anderson Silva in his last fight that he's gaining all Anderson Silva legacy. That doesn't work like that. You know, Anderson Silva, you never fight the same fighter twice. Anderson Silva is not the same. He's not the same fighter than when he beat Victor Belfort. It doesn't work like that. I'm not the same Georges St-Pierre I was when I went on my knees and begged UFC for a title shot. So that's what the guys sometimes they don't understand. But I never, for me, I feel like it's not an insult. I feel like it make me feel good that they're calling me out. That's mean for them. I'm still relevant, so I don't take it personal. For me, it's a good thing. It's a positive thing. So I feel very happy to be in this position.
By the way, do you think it's weird that Khabib is saying, I want to break, I want to walk away, and the UFC isn't letting him walk away? They're not letting him give the belt. It feels like, you know, in the past we've heard, oh, when someone wants to walk away, we're going to let them walk away. But here they continue to try to convince him to stay. Do you think that whole thing is weird?
Well, for a business standpoint, for sure, the UFC does not like one of their athletes to leave on their own terms, especially when they are champion. They like to keep the ball rolling in the organization. And that's one of the things they were angry at me. I've done this 2 times, but I think they attach too much importance into that. If you look in boxing, the way they promote a sport, it would be, for example, Mayweather versus Canelo. And then after you know what they are fighting for. But in UFC, the way they promote it is UFC 259, this guy, UFC, you know, that's the UFC. They promote the UFC. Then after you have the 2 guys. Mm-hmm. So it's just a different way they promote the sport, you know. I think that the promotion should be more centered on the athlete than the promotion. Mm-hmm. Because there's all kinds of title. A title is just a meaning. Even if you're champion, doesn't mean that people think that you are the best in the world. You know what I mean? If you're champion, you can be champion, but you haven't fought the best guy. And people are not stupid, you know. People know that. For that reason, I believe, like they want to keep Khabib in because they feel like Khabib is undefeated. He had probably the most dominated career ever. He dominated. I don't even know if he lost a round. He might have lost a round, but he dominated all his opponents. And they don't want him to leave on his term. They want a guy to beat him. Then after they're gonna be like, okay, now you can leave. But Khabib is smart. I think he's very smart. He left on top, and there's nothing wrong with that.
One last thing about fighting, George. You know, I'm Canadian like you, and I love Canadian MMA. And you are one of the pioneers of Canadian MMA. My first favorite fighter was the great David Loiseau. And yes. You and him and others and Faraz, you opened the door for so many Canadians. That scene behind you is a perfect example of that. How do you feel about the state of Canadian MMA right now? There aren't as many promotions as there were. You remember there used to be the MFC and Score and TKO and UCC. It feels like there's not as many outlets now to groom the future of Canadian MMA. How do you feel about it?
Well, I come from a time. The timing that I come from was great. I was back in the TKO, and back in the day, one thing that we did, all the Canadian fighter, we were training with one another. That's one thing that people ask me is why we don't see as much Canadian fighter now. You see guys, they're Canadian, but they don't train with each other. For example, the guy that fought this week, Jourdain, sometimes maybe not, he doesn't train with Eamon and Mendel and Olivier Aubin-Mercier. So they all stay in their gyms because the gyms compete with one another. When I was younger, I was training with Patrick Côté. I was training with David Loiseau, Dennis Kang, you know what I mean? Steve Vigneault, Rory McDonald, all these guys, we were all training with one another. And then we organized training that we could compete with one another to get better. to compete against the world. I feel now it's not necessarily a bad thing, but things has changed. And also COVID made it impossible to train in Canada now because the rules, we're not allowed to train. But on top of that, I think if they want to have more success, they need to be able to train with one another. Stop like competing with each other on the local scene. Like it's okay to have inside competition, but don't be afraid to exchange idea, exchange knowledge, to train with one another, because you want to be a big fish in the ocean, not be a big fish in a small aquarium.
Before I let you go, George, and I probably should have started with this. What's going on with the hair? The hair is big news. What are we doing with the hair? What is this? What's the inspiration? Are you doing this for like a movie role or something, or just for fun? You're letting it grow?
Well, I had a big audition a few months ago, and I was advised to change my look if I want to have if I want to give it a shot, because in the acting world, you don't want always look the same. And now people always see me since I'm a teenager with like shaved head and everything. So, and it's also the look, I'm getting older. Soon I'll be 40 years old, and I'm trying to look younger. When you're younger, you try to look older, and when you're older, you try to look younger. And I'm very excited now because there's a show that I've been working on. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier is coming out this Friday on Disney Plus channel. It's a series, and I'm very excited. I've been working very hard. It's been 2 years, and I've done some little gigs like this in the past, but I was not focusing on it. I was not taking it very seriously because I was focusing on competing. But now it's been 2 years that I work really hard with that, like with acting class and English classes. And I think people will see an improvement in my game. And so it's going to be on Friday, the Falcon and the Winter Soldier on the Disney Plus channel.
Yes, this is a very big deal. A lot of people are very excited about it. I was going to ask you about it, but you mentioned it. Are you going to keep the hair? Because I mean, do you like it? Do you feel good when you look at yourself?
I like it. I have good and bad comments. My dad hates it because he's a old school guy. My mom loves it, So I guess when you make a drastic change, you always have positive and negative, comment. Same thing when I first shaved my head and I was a teenager. My dad hates it. He's like, "Bro, you shave your head. Who's your idol now? Who you're trying to be like?" And now, after a certain amount of time, he got used to it, and now I let it grow, and now he doesn't like it. I mean, it's that's how people are, I guess.
I think it's great. I love to see it when it comes up on Instagram. I also think it's great. I mean, I know what kind of winters you have over there in Montreal. To see you doing the workouts in the snow and shoveling and trying to run and all that, you are an inspiration for us older guys, George. So keep it up. And congratulations on this new deal with Karate Combat Season 3 coming up in May. You're going to be their season sensei. You'll be working with Boss Rutan. They have a great product, and I think it's pretty awesome that you, considering your roots in karate, are kind of coming back home full circle to give back to the younger athletes. So félicitations and good luck with the filming coming up.
Merci beaucoup, Ariel. Thank you so much. And man, I look forward to see you soon, Ariel. Man, can't wait. Now everything is close, man. It drives me nuts. So soon. I can't wait to see you guys, and take good care of yourself.
Thank you, George. All the best.
Cheers.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.